Today on Exposed, the Calo podcast, amid escalating threats by Iran, Israel seems to be curtailing its war aims in Gaza. But this isn't the whole story. And over the last week, Biden has pushed for Ukraine to join NATO, which, in Putin's own words, can lead to nuclear war. Plus, the left is exploiting the Arizona Supreme Court ruling that reinstates a Civil War-era abortion ban to incite their base. Next, the World Health Organization is pushing for a pandemic accord to be signed by all world leaders, which would give them complete control during any future pandemics. And finally, the liturgical calendar has taken over nearly half of our year. All this and more today on Exposed, the Calo podcast. Should parents go to jail for the action of their kids? Michigan school shooters' parents have been sentenced to more than 10 years in prison. We'll get to that in just a minute. But first, it's been 6 months since the October 7, 2023 massacre in Israel that killed 1,200 Israeli citizens, and they abducted hundreds of others as hostages, including Americans. This triggered the current war in the region. Right now, 133 hostages are still being held. The number keeps varying, but our numbers show there's 133 hostages still being held in Gaza. More than 12,000 rockets have been fired into Israel, 9,000 coming just from Gaza, and the remaining 3,000 from Lebanon. 604 Israeli soldiers have fallen, and more than 32,000 terror targets have been struck by the IDF. Now, Israel says it has withdrawn its forces from the major town in the south, which is Khan Yunis in southern Gaza. But a significant force still remains intact throughout the entire Gaza Strip. What they're doing now is regrouping and preparing for new missions, including missions in Rafah. What's actually going to happen with this war? Because we have the Biden administration putting pressure on Netanyahu and the Israeli government to cease fire, to hold back, to negotiate, to open doors, to bring in, humanitarian aid and medical aid, as well as food to those still held in the Gaza region. Of course, we're not against bringing food in. We're not against opening the door to be able to get something in. The problem is that you can't trust Hamas. And the Biden administration, everything that they touch, I think we've proven that in most of our shows, everything that the Biden administration touches, they destroy. If there's peace, they'll bring war. If there's war, they'll make it worse. So it doesn't matter. Whatever Biden seems to get involved in, he looks for a way to make it worse for some reason. And right now, the pressure that they're putting on Israel, I think Israel is capitulating, but only to a small degree. They've agreed to, kind of open the doors and let some humanitarian aid enter into Gaza. But this is a time of regrouping and preparation. Mark my words, here's what we got going on. Netanyahu is preparing for one of the biggest hits yet, and that's what's going to happen shortly. We'll see it soon. They're going to go in and take out the rest of the terrorists that are being held. The problem is they're still trying to negotiate at the same time the release of some of the hostages for some of the humanitarian aid. So we have to be aware that although it looks like that the Netanyahu regime is kind of giving in to Biden, they're not. As a whole, they are going to proceed and wipe Hamas off the map. Now, what that's going to do in the region, well, we're going to have to wait to see. But if one war wasn't enough, Biden is trying awfully hard to egg on Russia to join into the battle. Here's how they're doing it. They want to bring Ukraine into NATO. This is absolutely unbelievable. In order to show you what's actually happening, we're going to look at this first video. Do you realize that if Ukraine joins NATO and decides to take Crimea back through military means, the European countries will automatically get drawn into a military conflict with Russia? Wow. Of course, NATO's united potential and that of Russia's are incomparable. We understand that. But we also understand Russia is one of the world's leading nuclear holders and is superior to many of those countries. So there will be no winners. You'll find yourself drawn into this conflict against your will. You will be fulfilling Article 5, collection defense of NATO members, in a heartbeat. Putin is looking for a way out. He doesn't want to have some kind of conflict, especially nuclear. He's smarter than it. He realized, and he said it in his own words, there will be no winners. There will be no winners. But will Biden administration heed what's being said? Let's look at this next video. This will tell the entire story. Here it is.
Support for Ukraine, the determination of every country represented here at NATO remains rock solid. We will do everything that we can, allies will do everything that they can to ensure that Ukraine has what it needs to continue to deal with Russia's ongoing aggression against Ukraine, an aggression that gets worse with every passing day. Ukraine will become
there it is.
Of NATO.
Ukraine will become a member of NATO.
Is to help build a bridge to that membership and to create.
Biden's trying to create the bridge to make it happen
for Ukraine moving forward.
But, of course, we believe that Ukraine deserves to be a member of NATO, and that this should happen sooner rather than later.
Ukraine believes it deserves to be a member of NATO, and that this should happen sooner rather than later. I don't know if you caught that, but what that really means is this has to happen before Trump gets back in office. That's what it means, sooner rather than later. They are pushing, the Biden administration is pushing with everything in them to be able to get Ukraine admitted into NATO. They're trying to start a world war. Maybe is this a way we have to cancel elections come November? Who knows? I don't know. I do know one thing. You can't trust anything that the Biden administration is doing. You probably heard that the Biden administration is a little nervous that they're losing in all the polls, other than one. I guess they're tied in one of the key swing states, but in all the others, Trump is running ahead of the game, and the left is going a little crazy. So they need to pull a rabbit out of the hat, if you will. And that topic is going to be abortion. I'm sure you've heard it, abortion. Lindsey Graham came out just recently and said, his plan, and it should be Trump's plan, he said, this is what Trump should do. He should adopt the 16-week idea on abortion. In other words, you can have abortion up to 16 weeks, and then after that, no abortion. That's a ridiculous plan, Lindsey Graham. Why don't you just, go into retirement or something? I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. What you're giving is, up to almost 4 months. 16 weeks is nearly 4 months of effectively killing more babies guaranteed. That's all that does. I believe under the circumstances, Trump made the best possible decision. And that decision is that, they took down Roe v. Wade. Okay. He was key in having this happen because of the appointees to the Supreme Court. And once Roe v. Wade was rescinded, this allows, according to the Constitution, which we don't want to change, according to the Constitution, this allows for that topic to go back to the states, reverts back to the states. And that's where Trump wants to leave it, and that's where we should leave it. Now, the battle isn't over. We know that when we won, if you will, a great victory, getting rid of Roe v. Wade, but we realize as advocates for life that this battle is going to still continue. And there will be states who will allow abortion right up into the moment of birth and even beyond. We do realize that. That's a sad fact in our country right now. But yet that's where the battle is going. So it no longer should be a federal battle. It should be a state-by-state battle. See, the Christians, we didn't celebrate Roe v. Wade like we should have. I think we should have. I think the churches should have celebrated. They should have had signs. We put signs out front, love trumps hate. I mean, I just think as Christians, we need to be more vocal in our faith. And that was a huge victory over 50 some years, where Roe v. Wade was kind of the law of the land. And having that overturned, that should have been a day of victory celebrated for all Christians throughout the country. But it wasn't. Many pulpits, unfortunately, were silent. And it's sad. It's sad for the church as a whole. But yet we have some states, like Arizona, being a little more proactive. Arizona Supreme Court just reinstates a Civil War era abortion ban. It was an 1864 law that prohibits all abortions in the state except to save a mother's life. Now, how is the right reacting to this? Unbelievably, they are not reacting positively. Instead, what we hear is almost a mirror image of what we hear on the left. Oh, this is going to hurt Trump. Oh, this is going to be a bad thing for Trump. How could this possibly be a bad thing when we're saving lives? See, our focus has been turned. We've got to get our focus as a Christian nation. We've got to get our focus back on life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We've got to get our focus back on truth and justice. And the only way we could do that is if we celebrate the right things at the right time. We don't care how the left reacts to it. Who cares? Leave it up to them. Let them go ahead and destroy themselves and say what they need to say. But we need to stand for what's right. This panic, that's what's happening. Panic is happening on the left because they realize that this is going to solidify the base of Trump. And I think for you and I, we need to be more vocal in what we're thinking, why we're thinking, and how we share that to the people around us on a regular basis. Because right now in America, we don't see truth and justice to the extent that we should. Speaking about truth and justice, 2 parents were just sent to jail, found guilty of involuntary manslaughter after their son killed 4 of his classmates at the Oxford High School back in 21. They were sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison on April 9th in Michigan. How is this being taken by the left and by the right? I mean, they're being held criminally liable for a school shooting committed by their child that they didn't have anything physically to do with. Both have been found guilty in separate jury trials. How do we look at this? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this something that we should be celebrating? Well, we have to take a look at the parents and who they are, what kind of parents that they were to their son who felt this unnatural, devilish, evil desire to kill people. Well, in doing a little research, what we found is both of these parents were extremely negligent in raising their children. In fact, they allowed them to have whatever they wanted. There was no discipline in the home. There was no discipline to this son. He had free reign of the house anytime he wanted to go in or go out. He went and did whatever he wanted to do. When he wanted a gun, the parents helped him get a gun. Never having any training, never having any instruction on how to properly handle a gun, how to properly store and keep ammunition, how to protect, life, liberty. No. The kid was already having some mental issues and the parents didn't help him get the proper help. That's negligent. Should they be held liable? Yeah, absolutely. I think parents should be held liable for the way they raise their children. For far too long, we've allowed this generation of children to kind of rule the roost. They kind of tell their kids what they want to do. You've probably seen as much as I do where kids kind of tell their parents to, F off or, to hell with you and they swear and they curse or whatever. Let me tell you something. If I ever even thought of cursing at my dad when I was young, there would have been a backhand that would have hit me so fast I wouldn't know what hit me. I'd be laying on the ground looking up, probably with stars in my eyes. But today everybody's afraid, you can't hit your kid. We put him in timeout. Yeah, how does that timeout work? It doesn't. They come back later at you and they start yelling at you and calling you names. Imagine calling your own mother swear words, curses. I can't even possibly imagine. I can't. Were there times I got mad at my mom? Sure. My dad died when I was young, but my mom was there, and she was a pain in the neck. Yeah, she was a clean fanatic. I mean, you couldn't walk in the house with dirty shoes. You got to take them off at the door. Make your bed. Blah, blah, blah. But, it was good. It was good. And I never would think anytime, even when she did get me angry for all of her, OCD, never once would I have thought to call her a name or curse at her or say something. Why? Because I grew up with discipline. It was instilled in me. I saw it. I felt it at times, and I knew when something was wrong. These kids today, they don't have that. And we need it. We need protection. And that protection has to start in the family. Unfortunately, if we don't do it, the government's going to try to step in and be the surrogate parents. In fact, that's just what's happening right now in the world. You may have heard about the World Health Organization. Well, they've got a new program in place that they're trying to implement. Let's put it that way. They've got 194 nations involved in the World Health Organization, and they're trying to get all 194 nations to sign agreements granting them this new broad scope of powers. And what this power will do is give them complete and total control over all medical knowledge, information, dissemination of information, and the way that the population responds to a pandemic. So in other words, let's say a new pandemic should arise from, the Wuhan lab or some other place that, maybe Bill Gates is, involved in, and Dr. Fauci. Remember him? Dr. Fauci. Yeah, Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci and Bill Gates, they're the ones behind the scene trying to make bioweapons. And so just like this virus got loose from the lab from a bat or something, we know that's not true. There was a bunch of nonsense. What happened is it was released. There was a trial. They wanted to see what would happen. They wanted to see how much control they could garnish throughout the world. And did they? They sure did. What would they do if they implemented this new agreement where countries like the United States instead say, okay, we have a pandemic on hand, so now our nation will not make decisions on its people. We relinquish that right to you. Oh, WHO. Take over, please. Here's who they've got working to try to make this happen. 23 former national presidents, 22 former prime ministers, a former UN general secretary, 3 Nobel laureates, all working behind the scenes right now from around the world, descending like vultures on all the leaders of the world. Of course, they don't have to descend on Biden. Biden's like, okay, I'll sign. Where do I sign? They're all trying to get this to happen before election 2024. Does that ring a bell? And that should make bells go off. They're going off in my head. Why? Is there going to be another pandemic? Could there be another pandemic? Mike, you're just a conspiratorialist. No, I'm not. I'm a realist. And I think anything's possible when it comes to the left and their ability and desire to want to remain in control. So, on March 18th, 80 ministers and church organizations added their voices to this group of people trying to get all these countries involved. And so I wanted to see who these church leaders and ministers and organizations were, because the article didn't really detail it, so I had to do a little research to find it. And I'm not going to list all 80 of them, but just to give you an idea who some of these organizations are. The ACT Alliance. Who the heck are they? Never heard of them. All Africa Conference of Churches. Yeah, and the Church of England. Ooh, the Church of England. Ooh, like they have any followers left? Most of them, they've scattered and left since Islam took over England. The Church of Sweden. Yeah, the Church of Sweden used to be one of the strongest churches back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Sweden, Denmark, Norway. Powerful move of God was happening. Right now, you can hear the crickets chirping in those church buildings. They're empty. There's nobody in there. The Church of Sweden. I don't know, maybe they got 14 or 15 members. I have no idea. No, I'm just kidding. But it's a low number. Georgetown University, well, there's no surprise. Harvard University, again, no surprise. Islamic Relief Worldwide. Oh, yeah, of course they'll be on that side. The World Council of Churches. That's a great organization. Yeah. And the University of Waterloo. Who? Faiths for Vaccines. Faiths for Vaccines. I didn't have time to really research who these guys are, but whoever they are, faiths and vaccines don't go together. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, none of it. So what are they trying to do? Well, they're trying to push this as if this is a great agenda. And we're going to hear a lot more about this, especially in the coming weeks and months leading up to the 24 election. God forbid, they get this to pass and the World Health Organization has control over any pandemic that would happen in the world. Because the United States, we're going to be in seriously deep trouble, more than we've ever even dreamed possible. You know, speaking of trouble, January 6th was a day that was supposedly a day of insurrection. You know, it was going to be one of those, go down in history. Just recently, a January 6th grandmother, that's right, grandmother, she was just convicted of a crime. Let's read the story. Following 3 days of deliberations, a federal jury convicted a 71-year-old grandmother on four criminal counts for spending 10 minutes inside the U.S. Capitol on January 26th. Rebecca Larvens was captured on video surveillance entering the Capitol building through the East Rotunda doors, walking around the building, briefly speaking with a police officer before exiting the building. She faces another year in jail and more than $200,000 in fines. Her sentencing day is scheduled for August 12th. I mean, how can we allow these kind of things to happen? There's the article. You're looking at it right there. 71-year-old grandmother convicted for entering the Capitol on January 6th. And people celebrate this? Listen, we're in trouble. We are in serious trouble. When we start going after grandmothers for entering to the building, she just went along with the crowd like most people did on January 6th. Now, were there some insiders in the crowd? Sure. And most of them were probably FBI or CIA agents. But anyhow, I'm sure there were some that weren't. And they were just troublemakers, because anywhere you get a crowd, you're going to have a few troublemakers. We know something is going to happen along those lines. But we need to have a serious look at everything that's going on. Let's not just skim the newspaper anymore. Let's read what's happening so we can remind people how important it is to vote this coming election season. And speaking about voting, oh, wow, things are happening around the nation. In Nebraska, you might not even know where it is, but Nebraska is kind of like almost in the center of the country. Nebraska, a senator just switched party affiliations, going from, drum roll please, Democrat to Republican. Now, this gives the Republicans a filibuster-proof supermajority that they are now looking to use to change the way the state doles out electoral college votes. In doing so, they might actually swing Nebraska and the entire 24 election presidential race to Donald Trump.
There are two unique, you can say, political quirks over in Nebraska that are relevant to our discussion today. The first is the fact that Nebraska is the only state in the nation that has a unicameral legislature, meaning that unlike every other state in the country that has a state assembly and a state senate, Nebraska has only one. They have a unified legislature with one single chamber consisting of 49 senators. And as you would imagine, Nebraska is a conservative stronghold, with most of the senators being Republicans. In fact, right after the 2022 midterms, the Republicans, they held 32 out of 49 seats. However, as of 2 days ago, that number actually changed. That's because on Wednesday of this week, Nebraska State Senator Michael McDonnell, he switched party affiliation and he went from being a Democrat to instead being a registered Republican.
Now, that's interesting because the way it came about, his eyes were opened. It was like revelation, where he finally realized that the Democrat Party that he was a part of and believed in and trusted in, they could care less about him. Let's roll this next clip.
In explaining why exactly he made the change, he cited his Catholic faith and the fact that he was being punished for his pro-life views. Quote, Michael McDonald, a 40-year Democrat, ran for the legislature in 2016 in South Omaha as a Catholic who openly opposes abortion. He said the Nebraska Democratic Party no longer felt like a place where he could reconcile his faith with his political affiliation. He said that he had asked fellow Democrats to respect his religious-based pro-life position and that they had instead sought in recent months to punish him.
Wow.
The county party withdrew its support of him and the state party's leading committee censured him. And indeed, because of his pro-life views, Mr. McDonald's local county-level Democrat Party, they voted to not seat him as a delegate, as well as to not share their party resources with him. And then furthermore, the state-level Democrat Party, they voted to censure him for his pro-life views.
So if you're a pro-life person, at least in Nebraska, and a Democrat, the Democrats just write you off. They don't even want you. They want nothing to do with you. They eliminated him from everything. Wasn't able to do a darn thing. So he realized, I don't know if I could be a Christian and be a Democrat. So, my friends, I think I've asked that question before. If you're a Christian, can you be a Democrat?
With this senator flipping party affiliation, the Republicans now hold 33 Senate seats. And the reason that this number is so significant is because in Nebraska, you need 33 votes to overcome a filibuster, which the Republicans now have.
Yes.
Meaning, in practical terms, that if all Republican senators get on board with a certain bill, they can now push that bill through the state legislature, even if every single Democrat opposes it. And along that line, the governor of Nebraska, Mr. Jim Pillen, he's a Republican, he urged the state legislature to immediately begin work on changing the electoral college voting system in the state of Nebraska. Because you see, this is the second political quirk within the state. They are one of only two states that are not a winner-take-all system. Alongside the state of Maine, Nebraska assigns their electoral college votes based on the popular vote in each congressional district. And so what this means in practice is that typically the Republican candidate gets 4 of the Electoral College votes while the Democrat candidate gets 1. That's exactly what happened in the year 2020. Nebraska, overall, they voted 58% for Trump and 39% for Joe Biden. But because of Nebraska's unique system, Trump only got 4 of the Electoral College votes and Biden got 1 because they were split along congressional districts.
Wow.
However, this is the exact system that Nebraska Republicans are trying to change.
So some of us might look at that and go, yeah, okay, big deal, 1 electoral vote. Aha, 1 electoral vote can make the difference. Here's our last clip.
The most recent polling that's come out has Trump leading Biden in 6 out of the 7 swing states.
Right.
As you can see up on your screen, this poll from the Wall Street Journal asked voters who they would pick if the election were held today. And the results are Arizona +5 Trump, Georgia +1 Trump, Michigan +3 Trump, North Carolina +6 Trump, Nevada +4 Trump, Pennsylvania +3 Trump, and Wisconsin was tied. And so, based on the calculations coming out of the Biden campaign, their best chance of victory right now has them winning the Electoral College by just a single
vote.
And so, flipping Nebraska is a major deal for them. In fact, just listen to how it was laid out over on MSNBC 2 days ago.
For a second, because there's a buzzing about Nebraska right now. The governor there has thrown his support behind an effort that would no longer allocate the electoral votes by congressional district. Because right now, it's 5 votes there. Typically, Republicans get 4, and President Biden, Democrats get the 1 from Omaha. If that changes, and we don't know that it will, the state legislature is going to look at it. But if that changes, that takes away Biden's best path to win. Because if he wins Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, but loses the other swing states and no longer picks up the 1 in Nebraska, 269.
269, folks. 269. See, this is everything that we're seeing in politics playing out now, everything that we're seeing in the news. If you really look at it critically, what you'll find is it's really all about the vote. It's all about the vote, especially Biden's parole program. You may have heard about that. A coalition of 21 Republican attorneys general filed a motion in federal court aiming to halt the Biden administration's policy that allows 30,000 illegal immigrants from 4 different countries to fly into the United States each and every month. Now, you may not have known that that's what's going on, but they're flying them directly from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. Yeah. They call it the CHNV. Looks a little like China, but anyhow, CHNV into the United States and allows them to remain here, indefinitely. Indefinitely. Criteria, none. Restrictions, none. The program allows these aliens, okay, after more or less flying into the destination of their choice, to obtain work permits and ultimately claim public benefits such as food stamps, welfare, and as we know, coming down the road very soon, the right to vote. That is what it's all about. It's about redistricting, putting people in these particular areas so that when the census comes, ever since Biden got in office, they made it so that, guess what? All of the illegals are counted in the census, which allows them to have more additional representatives, which will be Democrat, which will eliminate the ability for Republicans to ever win office again. There's an agenda. It's at hand. It's right in front of us. This is what's happening. And it's happening all over the country. And they're using things to distract us from what they're actually trying to do politically. They're using things like, the trans agenda, for instance. We all know about the trans agenda, but did you know that there's actually a trans takeover agenda happening right in front of our eyes? I want you to look at this. Scrolling in front of your eyes right now, you will see a list of all these different days and months throughout the course of the year where we're celebrating the trans, what? Well, I don't know. Trans what? Trans idea? Trans phenomena? Trans welcoming? Trans parents? It's trans everything. Here's some examples. February 28th. HIV is not a crime awareness day. HIV is not a crime. March 31st, International Transgender Day of Visibility. We just celebrated. Did you celebrate? Oh, we were celebrating. It was beautiful. April 6th, International Asexuality Day. April 18th, that's coming up soon, Non-Binary Parents Day. Woohoo! Are your parents non-binary? Yeah. April 26th, Lesbian Visibility Day. Come on out there, lesbos. Come on out. We want to see you. May 22nd, Harvey Milk Day. Yeah, that was a guy's name. He was one of the first people to come out of the closet in California. Harvey Milk. LGBTQ Pride Month. Oh, that's in June. The whole month. It's Pride Month. June 1st is LGBTQ Family Day. Ooh, they have families too. June 30th is Queer Youth of Faith Day. Oh, all you queer youth belonging to all the churches, come on out. We'll have a little celebration, some hot dogs, hamburgers, French fries. July 16th, International Drag Day. I'm getting my high heels prepared. How about you? October, LGBTQ History Month. We get the history of the LGBTQ movement. Oof, make sure your kids tune into that. They're going to get a real lesson. October 8th, International Lesbian Day. We get to see lesbos from around the world. October 11th, National Coming Out Day. And October 26th, Intersex Awareness Day. Now, that's just a few of the many that you see scrolling on your screen, different days that are designated, different months that are designated to this whole trans movement. And it all started with this one man. Here he is.
Hi there. I'm Rachel Crandall Cracker, and my pronouns are she and her. I'm supposed to talk about what the Transgender Day of Visibility means to me. Well, I created the Transgender Day of Visibility back in 2009. And the reason why I did that is because there was an awful lot of loneliness. And people didn't know what people in other states or part of the country were up to. And I wanted a day that we could be proud about ourselves.
That's not the only video. There's a whole lot of videos of her, and some of them with the same words she stutters, and with the others saying goes through a whole sentence and doesn't stutter at all. So listen, do I believe it? Nah, I don't believe a darn thing about it. People like this, they're liars, and they're trying to push an agenda in order to destroy the fabric of our culture, destroy the fabric of our nation, and destroy the fabric of our families. And just when you think you heard it all, something like this. I know a little laughter is good, but now we got to talk about something serious, because just when you think you've heard it all, something like this comes up. Here it is.
Family of a Portland girl who was 9 years old filed a $9 million lawsuit against a school where she was gang raped in the bathroom by 2 boys. Those 2 boys were suspended for a day. In April of 2022, these 2 students were attending the Schools Uniting Neighborhood program at Scott Elementary School in Northeast Portland. They told the girl to tell the staff that she needed to go to the bathroom, and then threatened her by saying if she didn't, they'd find out where she lived. Just a reminder, this is a 9-year-old. We're talking 2nd and 3rd grade. She complies, she goes into the bathroom with them. The other little boy meets them in there. They lock the door, rip down her pants, and they both penetrate her. One of the little boy's dads actually reports the incident, and both of the boys are suspended for a single day. Now, before the suspension, the school decides not to get police involved, and they pull their own investigation, and they interview her without her parents' consent.
Unbelievable.
Since the alleged attack, the young girl has been suffering from pain, trauma, and a gap in education and social anxiety brought on by the incident. No kidding.
Wow. I mean, how do you even reconcile with that? How do you process something like this? First of all, the parent that turned in his own kid, I applaud you. Although I think you should have turned him into the police department. They turned him into the school. That's one thing. But listen, this is the kind of crime that if your young kid is committing now at whatever age, doesn't say what age the boys are, but I'm assuming that they're maybe a year or 2 older than her, probably not much more than that. They're gonna do worse than that. Should they not be held accountable and get some punishment, some help, get some real help? But what kind of a system do we have when the school questions the girl, the victim, without the parents present? This lawsuit, $9 million, it's not about the money. That school, that principal, people in charge, the school district, whoever it is, they need to be held accountable, because this goes so far beyond unacceptable. This should be an outrage. This should be an outrage in America. I don't want to end the show on such a solemn note, so we're gonna go one step a little further before we end today's show. Be careful if all this stuff doesn't sicken you enough. Be careful what airline you might fly on. Let's roll this last clip.
Are you a mentally handicapped, schizophrenic, blind, transsexual dwarf with no limbs? Well then, congratulations, you have now been selected as the newest pilot for United Airlines.
Oh my God.
The FAA, the government agency responsible for regulating air travel in the United States, has just rolled out a new diversity and inclusion program to hire people with, quote, severe intellectual disabilities and psychiatric disabilities. At the same time, United Airlines, whose CEO routinely dresses up as a drag queen, not making this up, is apparently happy to follow the FAA's lead. United CEO...
Are you kidding me?
That he will prioritize the hiring of pilots not based on merit or abilities, but based on gender and race, because there's too many white guys in the cockpit. Not surprisingly, your favorite elites love this idea. I mean, why wouldn't they? It's not like George Soros or Bill Gates or Kamala Harris are going to be stuck with one of these intellectually disabled and emotionally disturbed pilots. They fly private. But for the rest of you peasants taking commercial airlines, well,
Yeah.
good luck out there. You're certainly going to need it.
You see, it all starts when we allow crazy people like, the CEO, okay, the guy dresses like a woman, nonsensical. We allow them to be in charge of a corporation. Okay, if you're a stockholder in that company, sell that stock, man. Get out. Get out. These people have to pay a heavy price for what they're doing because DEI, diversity, inclusion, equity, these concepts don't fit into our social structure and they don't protect us. They actually leave us exposed. Can you imagine hiring someone to be a pilot not based on their ability to be a pilot? I mean, what is that? Well, I'm going to hire you to be a pilot, even though, we know that you're a ditch digger and, we know that you're a plumber and you're probably a very good plumber, but we're going to let you fly planes. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? No, that's not awesome. That's not a good thing. It's crazy. I mean, we like to celebrate people, and I think we should celebrate people as, individuals. We have people in our office. We have some great producers here. In fact, this was given to me. It kind of reminds me of one of our producers. I won't say his name on the air, but anyhow, it's one of his eyes. One's a little higher than the other. One's a little lower. It's got like one ear longer than the other. Listen, we can celebrate diversity because I love him. He's a good, hardworking young man, and but it looks like he got a tail, but it's just one leg is a little longer than the others, so he walks with a little limp. But we love him anyhow, and that's the way America should be. We love everybody, but we can't handle any more nonsense like this. Hey, my name is Mike Calo for Exposed, the Calo podcast. Thanks for watching. God bless you, and God bless America.